Hello, everyone.
Woo!
Hello.
Welcome to the stream. We're going to be talking about Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 3, the music and sound thereof. And we're all here. James, Justin, and me, Xanthe.
Yay!
Ooh.
Everybody.
Hello, everyone. Hello. I'm trying to pull up the chat, but I can't see it. Oh, because I'm pressing on the wrong thing. Okay, cool. And I see a message from James Waterman. Yes, very exciting. Oh my God, this episode. Okay, well, how are you doing today?
Doing good. It's an exciting episode.
Happy Perfect Square Day. It's 1/16 January. So, you know. Hello, Ender. Oh, hello, Ender. Hello, Blue Pig. Did James and Justin get
We
swapped?
did.
Or are we normally on opposite sides?
I think we are.
That's the kind of dedication
Oh
that
my
our
God.
fan base has.
That's what we got.
Our fan base knows which side that we're on. Come on, Xanthe. We need
It was
consistency.
great.
Hello,
No,
Orc Fonts. Oh,
You
I'm
gotta
excited that
surprise
you're
them every
here.
now and then.
Okay, this episode. What occurred? What has happened during this episode?
Well,
Okay, seriously, we have a lot of first of all, Justin, do you have any particular sound design things that for us to make sure to leave room to discuss?
I had a little thing about the Hutt's voices that I
Oh,
wanted to
cool.
discuss.
Okay. I was really interested in that too. But if anyone in chat has any comments about the music or any questions or any thoughts about it, feel free to drop them in at any point, and we'll discuss them because there's a lot of things to talk about.
There's a lot of things to talk about. You mean musically, or just even non-musically and story-wise? And
both. I mean, I think it all. I think it's all related. It's impossible to separate them.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I see Blue Pig. I see Matt Berkey. I see the cutting room floor. I see Blue Pig, and of course Oric Fonts and General Xanthe. All right. Can we just get the elephant out of the room, which is the Tuskens died?
Which is Max Rebo. We need to get him out of the room. Yeah.
Yeah. The I felt like we built up all these things and knocked them down pretty quick.
Yeah,
pretty
quick.
Not a fan.
Yeah.
And we talked about last week. We had really, really nice and not, I mean, nice is a cheap word to describe it, but it was nice, but it was also a really important and meaningful breakdown of what the Tuskens, represent, and just to see the unfortunate usage of them to launch, an outsider's journey. It's what they ended up being. It's seemingly so, at least until proven otherwise. Seemingly they're used as a device to give Boba Fett motivation as opposed to having agency and importance on their own merit. So that's unfortunate. That's really unfortunate that's where it went, right? So
absolutely. Yeah. And spending so much time building up this great relationship as viewers, kind of with opening us up into a world that we hadn't considered, really redefining characters since movie one, kind of a thing, and really redefining common aspects, narratives about that. And then it's kind of, at least for what we see right this second, gone.
Right.
And we never even got to hear diegetic music. So not only were we kind of on the fence with sometimes they weren't getting subtitles, and so we weren't even in this episode when we were hearing the hymn, the dirge or whatever, it's still and I know that it was like adapted the lyrics from, you know, I don't remember what language, but I know that, but still, like, musically, it's a very like Western hymn, you know. So
Are
still,
you
like,
are you talking about in this episode that hymn?
yeah.
In this episode, yeah,
Yeah, I have the
So like,
lyrics here. By the
so
way, I mean, well, let's make sure we talk about it. But yeah, I have it. It's Mandalorian. So there you go. It's specifically Boba Fett's culture and not the Tusken culture. So
right. So still, like, the whole telling of their story is so from
Mhm.
that lens, and like we were even just like hoping to get a clear sense of diegetic Tuscan music, and we didn't
right.
get that. I mean,
Right. And I kind of wrote down that that the music itself was very based within, if you're familiar with Russian Orthodox chanting, a lot of
Yeah.
the chord changes and just style of like meandering tones and this kind of very church
it was
hymn kind of
churchy.
style. Very churchy, very
I don't
churchy.
know if it was like I don't even know if it was like like it wasn't like even Byzantine. It was more like Gregorian almost, or not even.
Yeah,
It was like a different style. We should, yeah, we shouldn't conflate those because
no,
definitely chanting
absolutely.
is definitely. But I think like the it's sort of like I'm not religious, and I've kind of always been like, if I die early, like I hope that I'm not like put through this like super religious thing where it's sort of like my memory is being overwritten by like a religious tradition that doesn't mean something to me.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so this kind of reminded me of that. But even going back to like something that I'm seeing in chat, and I've seen a lot like in other um, like tweets or reviews of this episode, is whenever the topic of the Tuskens dying comes up, there are a few pushbacks, and one of them is, well, we knew it was going to happen and agreed, like
Mhm.
some form of this was going to happen, but that doesn't. There are many ways that could have been shown. That's one. And another thing that I hear a lot is, well, is do you really believe that they all died? And m- emphatically, it doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
does to me. It doesn't matter. What's the difference if all of them die or if two survive? Does that make it somehow a little bit better? Because like if like if like 80% of my family were wiped out, like if I came, I don't know, if I visited like my family and like three people were dead, I would be like, someone slaughtered my family. I wouldn't be like, oh, but there's still one person left. Like, and it doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah. It
it's
doesn't matter. And if I mean the point isn't. I mean what the Tuskens are representing isn't a total annihilation of their population and culture. It's it's a genocide of, you know, their by outsiders, and that doesn't always equal complete annihilation and removal of
yeah.
all members of a race. It's you know, there's plenty of you know, of original you know, indigenous Americans that are alive today, and I
Yeah.
mean the fact that we
Oh, we
even
kept
have people on,
a few survived. Don't worry.
you know what I'm saying? So this is what I'm saying. If
Yeah.
anything, that doesn't help anything, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't really see the point of that at all, you know, of that being a counterpoint or anything. I think if you're going to use people that are basically stand-ins, or what's the word, allegories or whatever, metaphors for the indigenous American experience, which that's what the Tuskens are, and that's what they've always been. Star
Or
Wars
not
is.
just American, but yeah.
Well, no, I would say American because that's the that's within the cinematic language that George Lucas was telling. That's what I'm saying is like the
True,
Tuskens.
maybe. It could have
I
also
would say
been. It's also the story of like the Maori,
uh,
the Aboriginals.
no, you're right, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
not what Lucas was accessing when
yeah.
he was, you know. So that's of course that is the story of other people that are. You know, this is a story as old as time, but you know, the specifically within the cinematic language of the '70s, thus those Tuskens would have made sense to the audiences through the lens of Native Americans and and their role in Westerns, specifically their role in Westerns, right? And that's why the Tatooine setting is a Tatooine desert. Is because it's a space version of the Western in the desert. The desert, that's why it's sand. I mean, that's why when you're watching it, the audience is watching, it's like, oh, it's like a Western, but it's in space. And the reason why is because it looks like in fact, I guess it was Tunisia, but later on they shot Return of the Jedi out in the actual Mojave Desert, right? But anyway, I digress. The point is that if you're going to use these Tuskens, in your stories, then you have a lot of responsibility. Otherwise, don't use them. And so it's unfortunate that they went this direction with it. So
yeah, and going kind of on the theme of the music, it was a really weird choice to really switch styles because we saw a Tusken funeral. We saw what they did, and we heard the music, even though it wasn't diegetic. We heard the music that was kind of established there, and it was still the voices, but it was still very much in this kind of...
It was more of the Boba Fett.
It's more of the Boba
music.
Fett kind of tonality,
right.
I want to say. And then this still uses the theme of the voices again. This weird juxtaposition, in my opinion, of these voices and then the Tusken language being so screechy in its own right. Just the difference in tonality there, or like timbre. But then to like really, really like after 2 episodes of this very distinct Boba Fett with the Tuskens kind of style, just to really switch into this Western hymnal kind of music.
And that's why I think it's so tricky. Like when people get excited and the speculation just like, that's why I think it's just like nothing is confirmed unless you see literally a source. Because when the theme song was coming out, a lot of people were like, oh, the chanting is like, I think it is calling upon like Maori traditions or like whatever. And no one ever said that. And that was like giving it too much credit for what it was. If anything, like it probably came from that Swedish song. But like either way, if that's not confirmed, like and people are reading into it, that is something that like spread like wildfire on the internet.
It's really interesting.
As something like, oh, look how like cool cultural they're being, which is like
did
never
a Maori person ever say that though? I feel like I never saw anyone online that's actually Maori.
Right. No, but people have been like, oh, I think some Maori people, I mean, I'm pretty sure I saw some people saying like that it reminded them of that, but being reminded of something does not imply intent and does not like cover one's ass at all. Right. And the fact that like, even if that were like indigenous inspired music, the theme, the fact that it was never even used for like the Tuskens is just like, well then what's the...
Right, and it's like they dropped a haka like right into the theme there, which is an incredible
and like the dance at the end. And what Oricfons is saying is like it is a great summary of the last episode. Felt like a partial subversion of those tropes, and this episode demonstrated that they were actually just doing those tropes.
Yeah, and I like how you said partial because in many ways it wasn't. It was like Boba Fett was very much the the top ranking member and the person within that had the most agency out of that story, and had the most voice.
Last episode compared to this or compared to the others was like, okay, we're interested. Right. Let's see how this plays out. And then it was just like, oh no,
nope,
not even a single episode more, just already gone. And that whole scene of the whole flashback, including like. That whole thing was like 3 minutes or something. Like it was a very short, like
super short.
Just and then jolted awake by Krrsantan.
Many people got exactly what they were hoping for, which is like, let's spend more time in the present day, but that's the way that they went about doing it. Like let's wrap up this Tusken story in a really insensitive way. And like, let's go back, and now we're back in present day. So we got way more present day material in this episode than we've gotten in any other episode, but at the expense of of a questionable decision on the narrative's choice. So,
And I'm curious if this means that if we are going to continue having these like Return of the Jedi era post kind of flashbacky moments, if it's now just going to be a revenge story kind of a thing, if it's just going to be him going after the Pikes or whoever he believes committed
Right.
this atrocity kind of a thing. And maybe this is what I dare say the point was, so that now that he's potentially facing the Pikes in his Jabba the Hutt era time. I mean,
Yeah.
his reign of Tatooine, or the area. If that's just the parallel now, he's getting revenge of the Pikes back then, and now he's got to fight them again.
Well,
This-
my feeling, I mean, there's the what do you call it? The symbol that was painted. That's from the Bite Gang, not the Pikes. It's from the Bite
right.
The Niktos.
They
and
were-
so I think what's going to happen. I think this is this is my little
Mhm.
this is what I think what's going on. I think the flashbacks will continue, and he will go and get revenge on the Bite Gang, right? And that's where the flashbacks will like end, I think. And then I think what the reveal is going to be in the end of the series is that the Pikes actually framed the Bite Gang in order to gain control of that area, and it turns out it was the Pikes all along, and he'll find that out like at the end of the series, and
I see.
it turns out the Pikes were I think they're framing the Pikes to be the big bad guys of this whole show, and I think that's why I think that what actually happened in the show is that the Pikes probably framed this bad gang, so that
and then
the
like put their
Tuskens
symbol
would-
and everything. But
Yeah,
exactly.
I
Yeah,
think-
because what are these bike
makes
gangs? Like,
sense.
are they morons? You know, it's just like let me just kill the other opposing force in this, this tribe, and just make sure who they know who did it. You know, I'm pretty sure the Pikes framed them.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So.
the Pikes, by the way, I think their theme is that haunted mansion thing.
Oh, can you play it?
Yeah. I had mentioned it last week, and it was so it's like,
Yeah.
and then
Mhm.
it's kind of like twinkly.
Because you hear it at the end when they're invading.
Whenever they're
right?
talking, basically. And we
Yeah.
heard it last week too, but I just didn't know exactly what to attribute it to. But this time we heard it a couple times. It came during the first Pike conversation, and it came toward the end too, after the
They
chase.
appeared.
So I'm pretty sure that's a Pike theme. And the first time, again, this could be a coincidence because these themes are not that specific. So, could be reading into it, just like Omega's theme. But I'm pretty sure I heard like Rampart's theme,
Yeah, I
a little
did
bit of
hear that.
Rampart's theme from Bad Batch. During
I'm pretty sure
Nikto
that
conversation.
Rampart is going to appear in this show. Like I
Really?
100% no.
But yeah, just to remind everyone, it was this,
Oh yeah.
and that's it. But everything is a freaking half step in this show.
That's so funny. Everything is a
It's
half
like
step.
literally.
No, really. What's this? We went through a bunch of themes last week. What's this theme? I'm curious if this comes through because I heard it twice this round, and I know we talked about it last week.
I just call that the. I
think it's part of. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's two things because part of it is the neighboring tone chant, which started the whole
Right.
series, which was like, ah, da, da, da. But then we also hear it faster, ah. And then
Mhm.
we also hear it we also hear it mixed with the Jaunty Boba.
Yeah.
And here we heard it mixed with Jaunty Boba. It was like, ah, whatever.
Well, yeah.
I guess sorry. The reason I was asking because this episode, at least, it appeared every time he entered the city, kind of a thing. It came in when he goes in at night to rid the town of the half man, half machine, ruthless beings.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, as he's approaching the mayor's place, I was just curious. It seemed like stuck out more this round
Here's the thing.
in that order.
This show and this episode especially, and the first episode, every episode, it's littered with this theme. It's everywhere. So it's like, I think it's, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, there's not that much variety in the themes of the show at all. They're like all kind of variations on the same notes or the same chords. So it's just hard to tell like what they are supposed to signify other than just like slightly different moods. It's like the moods are either some neighboring tone, half note thing, you know, with
Mhm.
with parallel
Mhm.
movement, or it's like just straight up like
Yeah.
EDM
I
club
think
music.
I think it's part of Boba's theme, and
Yeah.
it was definitely in the first episode, the first time we ever hear the Jaunty theme. That's like the horn line. That's like intimately involved. That when we see the over, maybe it's a Mos Espa theme. Like maybe that it links to Mos Espa, because we see the first time we see the landscape of Mos Espa in episode 1, we hear that theme that you're talking about, Justin.
Yeah.
We are so it might
I'm pretty
be.
sure we hear it over the sands though too. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't remember. I always, to my ears, it always is involved with the Jaunty theme.
Okay.
But let's go check. But
Yeah.
I feel like it was in the Mandalorian. I guess that's what I'm saying. I feel like it's part of the theme. Like it's part of that
Mhm.
Jaunty Boba theme. I think. Like,
Yeah. I mean, it's a hidden Mickey, so it's when it's just like 3 notes like that, we can find it everywhere. I did go back to Mandalorian to check on the Jaunty Boba theme that Jonah was
yeah.
like, go back there, and as usual, he was right. And
Yeah.
but like for some reason, like we first hear it when, or unless I'm pretty sure the first time I heard it in my going back was in the tragedy when Boba and Mando are kind of talking. They're kind of facing off, like put your weapon down, like your armor, like, or what does the armor belong to? Like, are you a Mandalorian? When they're kind of like talking about the armor, but there it didn't like. First of all, it's like the way that it is in that scene. The rhythm of it, like it is this,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
which to me is not exactly.
Yeah. It's the downbeats.
Yeah, and it does go
Yeah.
to that more jaunty place later, but at least
Mhm.
at first it doesn't. Like, put it this way, in Book of Boba Fett, every time we hear that, it's jaunty funny. It's bouncy. It's
Yeah.
yeah. So
So I just listened to the credit, the stinger to the Mandalorian season 2,
yeah.
and that the bah, bah is part of the theme. So that's just
Yeah.
part of Boba's jaunty theme. Like that's
Or
where
part
it
of
comes
Boba's
from.
theme, because Boba has a lot of
Yeah.
themes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But specifically this theme that we're talking about, that horn line is part of it. So
Sometimes.
it didn't originate in this show. It was from the
No.
Mandalorian.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah. It's fine.
I like it.
Yeah.
Uh,
I don't have a problem with it. It's just not like earth shattering to like find it in a match because it's kind of everywhere and kind of non-specific.
Right.
But like, yeah, I think it's fine. I think I like
Mhm.
it. I like it. Fine.
Bubble Fett.
So
Okay,
so we
what a
got
way to
the
wake
we got
up.
the blue we got the blue elephant out of the room. Okay, the Max Rebo out of the room.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, but at the risk of bringing us back to that, do we want to talk about these lyrics, these Mandalorian lyrics
Oh,
to
yeah.
this, and like what they
please.
mean, right? Because I by the way, I got this from Reddit, and so like take this with a grain of salt, or give credit where credit's due to this. Somebody posted on the Star Wars subreddit. This General Anubis is the name of the Redditor. Okay, so I want to make sure I'm not stealing their information. I did not go and listen and like translate to Mandalorian, but my understanding is that yeah, I'm secretly General Anubis. So these are these words that are being sung here that are, I guess, in Mandoa, which is Mandalorian language. Alit, Orisha, Taldin, Burkiayan. I'm guessing how you pronounce these things. And basically the lyrics translate, my understanding, to family is more than blood, a close bond. Family is more than blood, eternal importance. Family is more than blood. Interesting. That they went ahead and made such a. I mean, that seems like a lot of homework to do for that one moment, right? Like they could have just done some. I mean, they went and they actually like put that in Mandalore like language. So I'm wondering, that seems like such a bold choice for that moment. Like, and you're right. I mean, it's so
Maybe.
interesting what you said about, yeah, I guess so. But I guess it's interesting what you said, which is like, not only is the music there like very Western and sounding, you know, very like the definition
church
of
hymn.
Western, like a
Yeah.
church hymn, like Gregorian,
Yeah.
not really, a little later than Gregorian chant, but you know, like very like a chorale from early
Exactly, like a
sacred
chorale.
music.
Yeah,
Yeah,
precisely.
and it's interesting that it's in a language that's specifically
Mhm.
Boba Fett's language. Like we found out in the Mandalorian that he's a Mandalore, like he actually is a Mandalorian, and so the hymn that we're hearing is from his perspective.
Sorta. Yeah.
What do you mean, sorta?
Boba
Yeah.
being a Mandalorian.
Yeah, remember he had that chain code that like that's what his actual like background
Yeah,
is.
I don't think
Obviously,
it
he
means-
doesn't
yeah, I
he
don't think it
doesn't
means
run
he's a
his life
Mandalorian.
like a man.
But
Yeah.
the armor does belong to him.
Yeah.
But either way, like
Yeah, well, he was saying that his like literally his thing in the Mandalorian is like Django is Mandalorian. Like that's like, so he's, you know, if you want to talk about like in his blood, he's a Mandalorian. Whether he like abides by that code or not, it's up to him. But he's like, his father is from Mandalore. Like Django is from Mandalore originally. That's what his the canon background is at the moment.
I thought Django was a foundling. Anyway, it doesn't really matter.
I don't remember. Okay,
I think
chat.
Django's a
I would love to
foundling.
be checked on that. But my understanding is that like that's his background, right? You know, that's like kind of what they're gearing him up to be, right? Is like, you know, they made that a point that he's Mandalorian, the Mandalorian. But anyway, the point is like the language being spoken here is the language of like Boba's people, technically,
Mhm.
right? And so accompanying as a funeral chorale in this moment, it's pretty bold choice.
I think it's
for
weird. I
them
think it's
to-
a weird choice. I think it's like a choice that's not, cause even if Boba is a Mandalorian, which debatable, even if he's the son of a Mandalorian, obviously it's not important to him. He wasn't raised that way, and whatever.
Django's a foundling. Sorry, I
Okay,
just looked
yeah,
at
that's
Django's
fine.
a
But like
foundling.
either way, like we know Boba's childhood is like Camino, and like it's not really as a Mandalorian. And so, but then again, like I don't know these. But then again, when people are mourning or like having sort of event, I don't know, you sometimes go back to like languages that don't even make sense to you, or like things that are like
Right.
more ancient than you or whatever. But here, this is score. It's not like diegetic, so it's not like Boba's singing this. But still,
Right.
it's a, you know what it sounds like to me is like, oh, it would be nice. It'd be nice to have this. Let's do it. Let's do something meaningful. Hey, someone just translate this for us. Okay. Yeah, we'll do that.
Right. Right. Exactly.
And if
Sure.
it was such a, you know, perhaps trying to be a really nice gesture, an idea, is that lost on the average viewer or any
I just don't
kind
think
of
it
viewer
matters.
because it's because it's Mandalorian?
I think it doesn't matter to the average viewer. I think the average viewer, including myself, was just like, yeah, it's sad hymn music. And
You know what I
guess
think
we're
it?
doing
You know what I
this.
think it's likened to though. I think it's kind of like when you watch a mob movie and there's like people being like gunned down and like there's a Pavarotti track being played, like, and it's in like slow motion. It's like,
No,
oh,
I don't think it's the same thing at all.
Oh, I know what you're
because that's
talking
like
about.
that's like a
Yeah.
No.
purposeful juxtaposition. This is like fitting the mood.
No, but I'm saying you're seeing it through this Italian dramatic lens, you know, and that's what that music typically is. You're seeing it like everything is being contextualized within the Italian experience. And that's, I guess, what I'm not, this isn't a value judgment. I'm saying that's kind of what this moment is being contextualized. This is a Mandalorian experience, you know, that's why there's Mandalorian lyrics being, you know, put over the top. Right.
But it's not overtly so. It's not like
Well, it's not like
to the
the
it's
average
like-
viewer knows
it's an
that it's
Easter egg
Mandalorian.
for
Right. Yeah, that's it.
people like
So
us to figure out later. It's not like
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
it doesn't help the storytelling. Like yeah.
No, you're right. It doesn't. It's not clear at
Yeah.
all, but it's definitely a choice.
It's
definitely
definitely
an
a
interesting.
choice. A choice that was made. So
yeah.
wait, okay, so
I guess I'm trying to reason why they made the choice is what I'm doing. I'm
I
trying
mean,
to
I
Yeah.
think
I'm
it's
trying-
very obvious. I think it's pretty like, yeah, it doesn't sound unreasonable that they made the choice. I just missed a lot of chat messages. Sorry. Django's a foundling. Okay, yeah, a lot of people say Max. Honestly, it sounded like a Metallica riff. Oh, the Jaunty Boba. Sounds like something that would be sung at a
Yeah.
Klingon bar mitzvah.
Klingon
I don't even. Django was a foundling, fought in the Civil War. It says that Django was a foundling. Okay. Sorry, James. These are all. Whether or not Django took the creed when he came of age is never confirmed. Oh, I didn't know that. Din was a foundling who chose to become a Mando. Yeah, for sure. Grogu was a foundling that was returned. We're getting like, we have a lore master in chat. This is what happens with Darth Tacos in chat.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we do this. We need people to like. There's one thing. If there's one thing you can do to make sure like Star Wars fans like to get the right answer is
Just throw
be
some-
boldly
Wrong.
incorrect, and Star Wars fans will give you the correct answer.
But it's good. It's good. Okay, so Auric Fons is saying these are common phrases in Mandos. They very much match the vibe of the Karen Travis Legends pre Clone Wars show. That was
Okay.
there was a show called Karen Travis era of Mandalorian lore. What? Oh, Travis invented the language. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
This is like a book, right? So in a Mandalorian pre Clone Wars book, I guess.
And if there's anyone to teach us about the language, it's Auric Fons.
Yeah, that's right. So
Alright.
I mean, it's worth noting. You know, they made a Gregorian chant with Mandalorian language, and that's definitely a significant choice.
I mean, it was
What-
pretty. Like,
Yeah, I want to challenge you all to go listen to some Russian Orthodox chanting.
Okay.
it
And-
doesn't
and tell
sound
me
the
if-
same unless if it's anything like Greek Orthodox chanting.
I think they're a little different. I just because
Because
I
it's
seems like
when
they'd
I
be
heard
pretty
it,
different.
I'm just throwing it out there. I heard it. I went and looked up because I know I've listened to quite a bit of that music.
Okay.
It just the changes and
Just
everything
the-
and how it's
okay.
presented sounded very, very similar to me.
Okay.
At least as an inspiration and not as a direct. It was Russian Orthodox singing with Mandalorian lyrics. But I just want to throw that out there.
Karen Travis wrote the Republic Commando books, which yeah, okay, the books, yeah, okay,
Right.
awesome. Thanks,
Cool.
everyone. Okay, so what the hell, Black Krrsantan? The obviously sounds very different from Chewbacca. Like, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Vicious.
And his,
Sounding.
I didn't-
his music is very intense. You know.
Yeah, there's
So,
a lot of drums. Or what did I have over here?
It
lot of
sounded
drum
like
hits.
an
Moment in
Atmosphere
Fathom, which
plugin
is
or
great.
something. Like like it sounded like one of those plugins, you know, like a string riser. It was just very, it was
Yeah.
kind of generic, like
It's just this textured and
Scary texture music.
Dun, dun, dun,
The
dun.
kind
I
that
would have
comes
to
in
say,
some-
like, if I could sum up, I think like the
Dun.
bulk of the music in the show so far, I'd say it's a lot of like textural bits and not really strong thematic material anywhere.
I
Like,
say the opposite. Well, I think the themes are where it stands out. The parts where you hum, like the theme,
I
like
think-
the
I'm
Boba
not-
theme.
no, but I'm saying I think the bulk of the score is not that. Like, I think the bulk of what's being presented, like, I'm just thinking about the speeder chase in this. I'm thinking about
Yeah.
like, I'm thinking about this Black Krrsantan scene. I'm thinking about, you know, there's a lot of textural stuff that it's not built by its strong melodic thematic material. It's built by its environments. You know, like this Black Krrsantan scene doesn't have many elements that really indicate melodic thematic material. It's basically like big booms, some synthy drums and synthy things
Mhm.
sprinkled throughout, but it's not like a strongly like, you know, melodic information going on very
not
often.
even-
Ever.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be melodic, but even just ostinato thematic. You know what I mean. Something that kind of works with it. It kind of felt, that whole scene kind of fell to me into the whole today's last 10 years trend of film music, action scenes and stuff like that, being just a lot of
Right.
drums and texture.
Right.
I feel like the Ostinato. So ostinato is like a musical word that just means like repeating, like kind of just repeating the same thing. It's like,
Small little things. Yeah.
and there's a lot of definitely ostinato in these scores where it's just like kind of the same little cell, the same little pattern.
Hmm.
Repeated, and ostinati are very convenient. Like they're convenient for editing because you can kind of like they're like Legos basically. You can kind of like take a chunk out and it still fits, and you can kind of like mix and match, and you can they're easily movable, and they often like in these scores for sure like it'll be like on a metronome, so they're really modular. Like a lot of modern scores are super modular in that way, and I feel like those moments of athematic texture are just a different side of the same coin as those ostinati, because for me, or at least, I mean, I'm speculating, but what they both seem to have in common is this need to leave room for the editor to cut and to be flexible on the music side without having to, where you could take stuff out and no one would really notice, and you could just not commit yourself to having music play out in a certain way. And that is how I would characterize this show.
I would agree with that
I
too.
don't think it's any
Yeah.
more textural than like Bad Batch. I think Bad Batch is the same textural, if not more. But they're all it's like they're all like on the, I don't know, I'm bad at metaphors, but you know what I mean? Like they're all like just beholden to the time.
Yeah.
They just have the composer job, it seems like, just has to
They're
be really
on the
flexible.
grid.
They have
They're
to be
on
on
the
the
grid.
grid. They have
They're
to
on the
make sure that what
grid.
they do is flexible and modular, and that's how a lot of scores are these days. And that's how I feel listening to a lot of stuff, is like I'm very aware, even listening to a lot of slow stuff, but definitely fast stuff, definitely this episode, because it was like really really obvious ostinato, where I'm just feeling like, all right, we're on the metronome, like we're on the metronome. And from the composer side, it's helpful because if you're looking at a piece to score and you're like, okay, I have to score 27 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to divide that by 160 beats per minute. It's going to get, okay, I'm just going to divide it, like if I want my phrase to work out, okay, then I just need to set the click to 127 beats per minute, and then it'll work out. Oh, and if I need to change it, we can just change the tempo. It's all sample, or these aren't even samples, but like as long as you're on the click and you have timed it out,
things around.
yeah, it's a lot easier. So
I
And
guess
you get a lot
yeah.
of like heavily edited scenes as well. Yeah, you see that within this show and other shows as well. You know, these really heavily edited action sequences, which I'm sure go through like 5, 6, 7 different versions. So that would add to the need for the score to be modular, is what you're saying.
And a lot of people have been saying that the chase scene is boring and have cited reasons for it being boring. I don't know if you all thought it was boring.
I thought it was in slow motion, but that was me.
I don't know. It was burning. I, you know, my reaction to it was, I think when you're watching something and you're thinking about how it can be improved, and that comes to you the forefront of your brain the first time you're watching something, at least for my experience, when I'm watching something in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this should be faster. This should be this should be more action packed. I think to me, I felt like it wasn't as impactful with what they were trying to portray visually as it could have been. I felt like, yes. So I mean, I don't know if boring's the word for it. I mean, I was enjoying. I gotta say, there's a lot of things I enjoyed seeing about that chase. I enjoyed seeing the streets of Mos Espa. I enjoyed seeing like the trailer droid carrying those 2 biths, just like we got in like the Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones, maybe one of those 2.
Yeah.
We got those trailers. I enjoyed seeing the what do you call it?
Melu
runs from Rebels. That's really fun.
I like the little mouse droids. You catch those
droids
as they ran on.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun, but it was definitely like, it was cheesy to me. Like the whole thing felt like I didn't feel any high stakes. I felt the whole thing felt like a goofball like scene. And in many ways, I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, you know who would love this? George freaking Lucas would probably like. I was like, George
Maybe.
Lucas would probably really like this scene.
Maybe, but we don't know.
Except it would probably. Of course, we don't know, but God
No,
forbid
I don't mean
project any type of like,
no.
you know.
I want you to keep talking, and I'm just gonna keep doing my. I don't ever mean to cut you off.
Okay.
I'm like
So-
partially talking to the people of Twitter.
Sure, but
George
I mean,
Lucas
like,
would have loved this.
okay, but I mean, it's
Many
like,
a chase
I-
scene
I-
in a George
I think-
Lucas movie. Many
Like I
a
said,
chase scene.
just like last week, I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think we can make statements like I think George Lucas would love this, but also know that this is coming from one person's like opinion perspective. So like my knowledge of like the way that George Lucas made Star Wars is like any of the quote unquote complaints about the aesthetics of that chase scene. I'm like, kind of seems like what old boy George probably would have done with that scene, you know, like really weird, like you know, in many ways it probably would have been faster. I would say, like if there's one thing that George
did speed
would have
things
done,
up
faster,
even
more
when
intense,
it was unrealistic.
you know, yeah, I would say he'd probably make those things faster. It did feel like a moped chase, as many people have said. I don't know. I didn't get bugged out by it. I would much rather they do weird stuff that could look, quote unquote, to many people's opinion, out of the ordinary for this franchise than just continuously show us the same legacy throwback designs. And you know, I'd rather they push the envelope aesthetically with Star Wars than just be like, oh, here's the speeder bikes from Return of the Jedi. And guess who's on it? A storm. Instead of a stormtrooper this time, it's a battle droid drawing. Like, it's just like I don't want to just have them like take Star Wars bingo and mash it all together and just. I love them to like design new things that look weird and look out of place. So
here's the thing: I don't think this. To me, this didn't scratch an itch of like, oh, it was a new awesome thing. And I think I always say I would like Star Wars weird. I like Star Wars trying stuff, but I realize that I need to like be more specific about maybe I'm kind of realizing what the edges of my feelings about that are, because to me this wasn't like my honest feeling is like they probably couldn't replicate Star Wars if they tried. Like, so this isn't like this isn't like an intentional departure. It's sort of like I don't want my music to sound like Beethoven, so I'm going to do something different. But like, even if I were trying my very hardest to sound like Beethoven, I would never be able to capture that, which is fine and expected. But I think like nothing about this was weird, for one thing. It was like maybe tropes from different things. And for me, I mean, I was bored by it. That doesn't objectively mean it was boring, obviously, but I personally was bored by it.
Sure.
And I think a large reason was probably the music, and it probably like,
yeah,
the music was so
Yeah.
like, so like it was just
well,
like
this was kind of my point about the textural versus thematic. Like, and I'm gonna make a statement here. I need you to read between the lines here because I can already see what you're gonna say to it. Okay, so the point is like the way John Williams scores a scene like that is like the TIE fighter fight. Dun 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Strong thing that you can sing over, and it is interesting. It's going different melodic and tonal directions, and it's all over the place, right? But it's still setting that it's basically serving the same function, where it's not distracting from the action, but it's accenting the action, but also setting the scene in a really interesting way, and also creating thematic material that we can draw on later too. Like, you'll see that he used the same theme when it was Rey fighting on Crate, right? You got these little moments, right? Point is that this scene didn't have that strong standout melodic material. I had to go back and listen to see like what was even going on. And to my ear, it was like you said, it's kind of like a drum and bass.
It was literally a drum and bass beat.
with like a chromatically.
Yeah, like rising in the orchestra. Yeah, no, the Biker Gang is literally drum and bass music. They took in the drum and bass beat, which is basically a sped up almond break. For those who don't know this rhythm. It's this
Yeah.
very, very famous drum rhythm.
go for it,
Dun,
guys.
dun,
I'll
ch- ch- yeah, no, please bust it out for
Okay.
us. And
So
basically, sped up
I
or
don't have my
slowed
picture on
down.
but
Yeah, sped up and slowed down. All these things. It has like redefined a lot of electronic music
right.
styles.
Right.
Right.
Remember it,
And
Which I don't
yeah,
have a
which is
problem with that in Star
defined
Wars.
No, that's
drum
fine.
and bass music. Yeah.
It just there wasn't. I guess my point is that there's like nothing on top of it that like really stuck out, and made that scene come to the quote unquote next level, like as a
Musically,
standout
at
scene.
least.
It very seemed like just throw this little beat in there and have us some. I
it
guess
could-
it wasn't
the
as
beat
interesting as
itself
it could have been.
The beat itself was very square too, because there
Right,
could have been
and-
a lot of So Auric Font says that Frank Lehman had a good thread on the chase scene, so we'll have to check that out.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think it was just like when things are trying to be like exciting, I think like sometimes it may work sometimes to like put in some rock music, put in some EDM, put in some beats. But like when you keep anything up for too long, it's no longer exciting, and that in itself, something exciting like this kind of music becomes boring, and when it's just repeated. And that's how I felt during the chase scene. Is like the curves weren't like, I just kind of spaced out because it wasn't like, it was generic. It was like let's just put on the track and walk away while the chase scene plays out.
Yeah, it's just felt like
Right,
putting
no,
on
that's what- and-
yeah.
Oh, sorry, continue.
No. That's
No, I was gonna agree, and it's interesting too. What Auric Fonts just put in the chat from Frank Clement. If anything, the disconnect between musical pace, 145 BPM, constitutes, and then the vehicle pace is what it made it seem kind of off. Which to me,
That's hilarious.
you put in high intensity music. I'm just gonna again just to play with the jokes and things like that. Mopeds facing,
Right.
going running,
yeah.
chasing kind of a thing. There's that disconnect. And here's an example. We talked about this a lot during Visions. Our Vision stream is scenes or episodes that were either like heightened by the music because the scenery or the story wasn't there.
Yeah.
And this felt like an opportunity where it's like, maybe we lift this up a little bit and like find that excitement. And it was almost like maybe either
this one could have used the opera
my
music.
conspiracy theory, let's just drop the track and walk away and just let them edit, or it was like, this isn't working, can you help us? He's like, drum and bass, let's do this, is going to make it exciting. And it just, for me, my opinion, fell a little flat.
I agree. And that's really interesting. What was I gonna say? It kind of reminds me, there's two film scenes that effect reminds me, but they were doing it purposely to be funny. It's Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where they keep cutting to the knight that keeps running, but he's like, he doesn't get any, it's like the same clip of him running. And it's all, and the music is like, da da da, I'm coming, and it's like him like steaming in or storming in, right? And it's just the same clip of him, and he always has to start back from the same position, right? So it's like that.
About that.
And then there's I don't know if anyone's ever seen Wet Hot American Summer, but then there's another scene where literally I forgot what the actor's name is, but he's in a lot of these like Judd Apatow movies, and he's chasing a guy on a motorcycle. He's chasing a guy running on a motorcycle, but they're like at even pace, right? And he's like not getting any closer to him. It's like he's not gaining any lead, and so it's like deliberately supposed to be funny, and that's kind of what this scene seems like. And I think that's why it didn't go down with some folks, especially I guess some of us, is that it seems like they. Also, my understanding is a lot of it was practical effects.
There's a lot of
which is cool, unless it's like limits like how exciting it can be. It felt a little bit like a ride at Disney, like a stunt spectacular.
100%. I was like, yeah, this feels like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
Right.
which is
Or
which
something.
I love. I love Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
I also
It's
love
like
that Boba Fett apparently could have chased down the Major Domo at any moment since he just arrives immediately at the end when he crashes. It's like
We got his jetpack.
he got
We
it.
got his
Finally got
jetpack.
his jetpack. But you know what I think? I think maybe like the way I could view this is like maybe Boba was like trying to try out his crew and like was challenging them to do his dirty work for him as opposed to like because apparently he could have just went up in his jetpack and landed immediately on the guy. You know what I mean? So
Oh, he goes on. Having a cue with a fast BPM and faster pulse stream isn't enough. If the music is otherwise slow to change, melodically, harmonically,
right.
yeah, stuff has to happen quickly. Yeah, it's. So I think one thing that I've been missing, or one thing that I haven't seen as much in the conversations about this scene, which are more offerings of more detail, like of other aspects of the scene that maybe people could be reacting to, because there is like a thing that's happening where to a lot of people, even people that end up liking the scene, because I've seen people be like, well, since everyone hates this, I have no choice but to stan it now, like, which is fine. But like initially, if anyone felt like this something was off, or just that they weren't that excited, that doesn't mean that like you're not being an open-minded Star Wars fan.
Right.
That's not like an automatic jump to make. And even if you think like feelings are that's your reaction, then the way that we justify it is the hypothesis, really. People being like, well, I think it's because, and then they'll pick on something, and then that gives other people the chance to pick on that thing and debunk that thing. But maybe what actually made them feel that way was something that they're not even detecting, like the music, which like not that many people have brought up the music. You know, people have been like, the bikes were slow, which and that's why. And maybe that was part of it, but maybe it was also all of these other elements kind of stripping away from the feeling of it without even knowing. And so that's something yeah.
I'm sure a lot
I've
of
been
this
like scared to like I've been like a little bit nervous to like even talk about this scene, because it's like too much to get into without being like, I don't know, making it without seeming like I'm being a hater.
I think a lot of
About
it
the
was just
scene.
also
Yeah,
like
unfortunate,
first
yeah.
reactions of it. I watched this at 1:30 in the morning, and by then, and that chase scene ended, I was like, Doctor Who, Back to the Future. What did I
Yeah.
just? Okay, I'm gonna return to this. I'm gonna return to
I was
this.
like, I was gonna text y'all and be like, how about that medium chase scene, right?
I
Like
actually didn't.
that
I'm glad you
medium
didn't,
speed.
because I
No,
watched it in the morning.
no, I wouldn't.
Oh,
I wouldn't spoil you, but I don't know. I think there's definitely like I think it's a unfortunate reality of online reactions where like anything that doesn't sit well about the franchise that you like is somehow a reflection of like its quality as a franchise, and
yeah.
everyone's got their team and their things that they're into, and all of a sudden if God forbid you don't like, or if something didn't like wasn't as effective as it could be in the franchise that you like, it's like no, it's like that's gonna happen. You're gonna not everything that some company makes is going to be like gonna hit you perfectly and affect you beautifully. Like that's okay. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that you can't feel the way that you feel about that, but it also doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with people that do. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the franchise or the creators that made it. It's just art is subjective, and sometimes something's effective and well done. Sometimes it could have been done better to certain people and whatever. Like
The thing is, like, a lot of times when people state opinions like that, or like, I don't even think they're opinions. I think if people are saying like, I was bored by that, I don't even think that's an opinion. I think that's just sharing what your experience of that
right.
was. I wish there were like more room to explore why that is. Like, and
Yeah.
because I saw that some people were, I don't know, upset. Some, people were pointing out different things that don't make sense about the gang to them. And,
Right.
there are like ways that people will try to shut down those arguments. Like, well, but look at American Graffiti, or like, but look at this. And it's like, okay, so those facts don't necessarily, they don't prove anything. Like,
No.
maybe maybe cars work, maybe like car things work in one context, and maybe for some
Right.
reason, even though I know logically that this probably fits, even though logically I want to be on board, for some reason it just didn't work for me.
Well,
And then that's when we
yeah.
learn stuff like, we kind of explore those other things that maybe we're not as aware of, like the music
Right.
or the costumes. Like I saw someone talking about zippers, and people were pretty upset that someone was talking about zippers. And I was like, I never really thought about zippers in
Right.
costumes, but I'm not like, I don't care that someone else really notices that. That's like, I think we should be grateful for people who like have that eye for detail
Sure.
and are like actually paying attention to little things like that, because I may not be able to articulate why a costume looks out of place to me, and maybe someone else has a reason that
Right.
they can point to.
It's the same thing about this show that we're on, is that the three of us talk about weird things that most people don't notice in the music, and some people that just goes, that's not what they're looking for, that's not the droid that they're looking for, so I don't know, I don't get hung up on it. Sometimes I like when it's bad. Like I would hate, because here's the thing is, like, let me give you an example, and again, another like hyperbolic example. It's not to be taken holistically, but like, if there's one thing that gets, I'd say, like, not universal acclaim, but like it goes down easy with like the huge mass amount of audiences, it's the MCU content. Like that stuff is made, and when it's made well, like, it's for the biggest audiences to not have these type of nitpicky issues with them. Like it's basically, those movies are often made to just like really, really hit all those little check marks that most audiences are looking for, right?
Agree.
And what I've enjoyed about the Disney Star Wars stuff that they've come out with since, and by the way, also the prequels as well, is that a lot of it doesn't go down well with most people. Like, and I think a lot of the reasons for that is because it's doing weird, adventurous things in many ways. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just that they didn't do something well. But like, in some ways, I think that they take more risks with Star Wars than I see them taking in other franchises, and I enjoy that, and I want them to continue to take those risks. In other ways, they're not taking enough risks. So I'm not going to act like it's, like I said, this isn't a holistic statement, but I do think these weirdo Vespa scooters that are on screen are like not something you wouldn't see. I don't think you'd see a corollary in a Marvel movie. That I don't think they would create something as weird and quirky and goofy as that in a Marvel movie. Am I
I'm
wrong,
not as
Justin?
well as
I would
Or like,
sorry, I would agree with that. Yeah, because I'm personally a big fan of the MCU.
yeah, likewise,
All
by the
those
way.
movies.
I love Marvel,
And
and honestly, for that reason, because a lot of it goes down really well for me. So,
right, and
so,
what helps with Marvel, not to like completely just derail this stream, but what helps with Marvel
Sure.
is that it's already has this insanely weird content to pull from.
I
That's a
was
good
just
point.
going to say, I'm as an outsider,
Insanely weird,
I'm not
very
an
weird
MCU
content.
person. I don't like Marvel. It seems like, would anything even, like, is there no speeder corollary or
There's
equal?
just
Is there no speeder equivalent, because there's already so much of a broad scope for the weird shit that could happen, and
That's a good
everything
so
point.
appeared. Yeah,
that
that's
stuff
the
wouldn't
point.
be
You
there.
don't have to worry
however,
about
what if you
jumping the
color
shark.
graded Marvel
Yeah.
differently? Maybe that would make a big impact. You
That
know what I'm
would.
saying? Like,
It's a
there are
comfort
just
thing.
different.
Sure.
I think a lot of this has to do with the comfort thing. Like with this speeder chase, if I'm going to put my opinion on it, I didn't hate it. I wasn't excited, but that was just an
Same.
experience.
I didn't hate it. I just was like,
It's an experience,
okay.
kind of a thing. And what it did do was bring me a little bit out of my Star Wars comfort zone. And even at 1:30, even on a second watch, I'm watching it and like, again, going back, questioning for ourselves, what makes Star Wars? What is Star Wars? What has to be this to this? This is something weird, new, and you just did this to me. How could you? Moment kind of a thing. Brightly colored things on a desert gray planet that we've established that has just been tan. Everything is tan. And then you show this to me to like really, even Boba Fett, he's green and colored, his helmet, and it's still very rusty kind of look. And he hasn't done his paint job lately. I've noticed. But I think it was just one of those, whoo, oh, we were just not used to that kind of,
Yeah.
or at least for me, wasn't used to that kind of, like, I wasn't ready for that in the comfort level kind of a thing. But in the end of the day, it's space, and a lot of weird things happen in space.
That's great. And by
And
the way,
it's
they're
great.
kids. They're kids.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
if
great.
there's anything that kids do, it's try to stick out and do something different than what everybody else has been doing. They're a bunch of like cyberpunks, you know, like they're a bunch of kids, and that's what kids do. They're like, you know what? Everything on this freaking city is gray and gross. I'm gonna paint my stuff like bright red. And guess what? You know, maybe it doesn't fit into the aesthetic of the city, but you know, I'm a kid,
Mhm.
and that's what I do. You know.
Yeah, sure. Um, what?
Yeah, agreed. Cutting room about the 40 versus 10
Oh
years
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Cutting room floors
Um,
and seasonally.
But also
Okay, so
60
what
years of,
Orphans
like,
was saying before
material to pull from.
is pretty much like, yeah, I'm I hope more directors can be bold enough to make their own bad decisions too.
Absolutely.
However, well, yes, I think, and what James was saying was like that like you were saying that you kind of like when there's weird stuff, like it takes you out of your, and you know, takes you out of your comfort zone. And I agree, because sometimes like having things that are off just is enough to sort of jostle me into considering like what I'm actually, I don't know. It's good not to have everything be perfect. Like, I don't know. Those edges
Yeah.
are where
Oh,
some of
yeah.
the most insight comes, because now I know, oh, I care about this thing that I didn't really even know that I cared about. And
Yeah.
now I know that, like, even though this can seem very similar to another version of it, there are elements that maybe for me made one work better than the other. And
Right.
it's interesting. And, you know, art's an experiment, right? So they experimented with this, and
What's interesting is what I'm now thinking about is we just did a whole stream on a series that was nothing but Star Wars experimentation. Let's take
Right.
everybody out of their comfort zone. And then it's
Right.
like we return to this live action. Okay, no, hold on. It's real Star Wars now. I'm just,
Right.
again, just
Yeah.
using the wrong roots here, but it's like, then we did that through something weird during canon Star
Vision.
Wars.
Yeah.
Vision, you know, like, compared to Vision. Well, that's what I'm saying. Visions was weird, experimental, different, and then now we're okay. Everybody, we're back to canon, the actual story now, and you know, and we threw in something really, really bizarre, and everyone's like, this isn't, you know,
Right.
this isn't Visions. I would expect this in Visions. I would have been. If I saw this in Visions, I would have been like, yeah,
Let's go with these mopeds.
totally. This makes sense.
So
Anyway.
here's a comfort level moment here. Completely switch gears. Okay.
Mhm.
Anybody notice Boba Fett's theme when he was riding the bantha into Mos Eisley? Did anyone notice something interesting about the theme?
I had something here. Besides it being glumping underneath,
Yeah,
What do you
like the
think?
rhythm.
Like, sounding like a bantha.
The
Yeah, what
rhythm and
about the
harmony
rhythm?
was a little bit different.
Yeah, what
Boom.
specifically was different about the rhythm and the
It
harmony?
wasn't
Or
the
rhythm?
like 11 beat thing. It was like, you know,
Boom,
not
boom,
that.
boom, boom.
It was
What
like
was it?
do
3.
do. Yeah, it was 3.
Yeah, it's 3 the whole time. They didn't
time.
have that extra beat, or the sorry, not the extra beats, but the cutoff beat of that 2, the bar of 2. So we've talked, if anyone's new on the stream, we've been talking about how Boba Fett's theme is in 11. It's 3 bars of 3 beats, and then a bar of 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, this is to my knowledge, the first time in this series where this main theme is being put into an even 3, whereas ba da dun dun da dun 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 2 3 1 2 3
The part B though is in the main theme, but the theme's not underscore, so maybe that doesn't count. But yeah, it stuck out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really
it
did.
was weird, and I was wondering what. I mean, it just might be just something cool and different to do. Curious at what maybe that might be indicating. You know, I mean, there was like 1 or 2 bars of 11 when he gets off the bantha in Mos Eisley. But yeah,
Right.
it's kind of an interesting choice.
It was. It kind of fell into that kind of. I wrote this weird word glumping, you know, for this kind of bantha, like this kind of feeling, this like desert walky, slow, not quite.
Sorry.
Little one drop there.
That was well. That was in 4. What was that?
Like a reggae beat.
Just put my computer.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. It felt Bantha-y.
Bantha-y. Sure. It was in an even 3. Okay, that makes sense.
That's
Maybe,
kind of lilt.
you know,
It's like a
maybe
lilt,
at that point, Boba felt a little bit more rooted in his situation. Obviously, his whole situation was about to get burnt up, but maybe it indicates a sense of comfort that Boba was feeling at that moment. He wasn't feeling uneven anymore. You know, he was feeling like he had found a place and something to believe in at that moment that was about to be ripped away from him or something, you know? So
even
Blue
when
pig.
looking at the what was it? We got that little shout back to, was it Mandalorian that had the stormtrooper heads and spikes? Yeah, we got that little shout back to that. It's like, you know, remember this show?
That's right. And we got what's her name? The actress that plays the actress that plays the person from the Mandalorian with the pit droids.
Yeah. Amy Sedaris.
Amy Sedaris. Yeah. She's so good. And what was her character's name? Like Pelo?
Something from Mos Pelago or something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So okay.
What's going on with this? Like this,
we have a ballad groove going in the background, because last week we did have this new thing also sounded kind of soft rocky, but it was more straight ahead. But before last week it was more like, it was like dee 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 dee. Oh wait, no, I can't do that because it doesn't. The beats don't go out. The beats don't work out right. Well, there goes my example. Because it changes, so that's a little bit trickier.
Could have told you that.
Fail. Okay, whatever. Well, anyway, there goes that example. But Blue Pig, we're just talking about
symmetry within music.
Yeah, symmetry. The symmetry.
Symmetry within music.
Like, does that repeat?
Yeah, the symmetry of the beat. Yes.
And then also interesting, speaking about things that are in a symmetrical time but that purposely go out. Did you notice coming out as he leaves Mos Eisley after talking with the Pykes and going back to the Tuskens right before he discovers their unfortunate demise, we get this kind of drum break, big drum break, James. I don't know if you've heard this. And I sat there, I'm like, oh, listen, odd time signature. I'm going to write this down so that I can impress James and be like, hey, I heard it too. But really, it was in 16. Everything was still in 4. They just juxtaposed the drums to be this like 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2. You know, this like kind of off rhythm thing. But the score underneath and everything, I was sitting there, I'm like, nope, we're in 4. We're in 4. We're just
that's a DAW decision for sure.
Yeah. That's like you subdivide the beats and you're like, okay, we'll put 16 pieces of pie.
Yep. Just fill it in, fill that grid, but make it, composer secret. Don't tell anyone.
Right. All right. I have a, go ahead, Xanthe. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna switch topics anyway. I was just gonna say we have to make sure that we talk about the rancor at some point and the script.
Okay. So, one of my questions I have for everybody here. Okay. I mean, he says it in the first episode. Okay. Boba Fett says, "Why am I supposed to give him tribute? I'm the crime boss here, right? Right." He says that, right? He says, "I'm the crime boss." Can anyone tell me like what criminal activity that Boba Fett is like overseeing? Like what act? If he's a crime boss, where's all the crime? Like, are there drugs that he's running? Can anyone tell me like to my knowledge, he like lives in the palace, but he's like, you never see anyone coming in and be like, hey boss, we got that new shipment of spice coming in, or hey, we got like, you know what I'm saying? Like, where's the crime part?
It seems like he's just overseeing all of the people that do crime and to make
And I'm
sure that the
curious,
different
But
gangs are
who's
not
doing any
killing
crime?
each
Have they
other.
shown anybody doing any crime?
I mean, petty
mean,
crimes for sure,
Like
crimes,
what?
but he's not.
like the
No,
water
you're,
stuff.
That was a crime? Wasn't that just a guy that sells water and was charging too much?
and then the kid stole the water he claimed, which then even
Yeah.
Fett was like,
And then
"That's a
and he's
crime."
like, that's a crime.
And
I'm like, who's the crime boss
so
here?
maybe he's not. Maybe that's part of the story here. Maybe that he's not. I want to rule with respect. Blah 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 blah. We haven't. We're all still here
We still
wondering
don't know what
why
he's
does he
doing.
want this job.
Yeah,
Maybe it's
like,
not to be a crime ward. Maybe it's even when she's like, "You're just a," because that's what the position has been for so long.
yeah, yeah.
You know, they're like, "You're just another crime lord," and he's sitting there like, "Well, I'm not
But
trying
my
to be that."
understanding, it's like a chicken or egg kind of situation. It's like his crew is there to protect him and his empire. Like, but what's his empire? Like, you know, like Jabba apparently was sitting on how much money from like probably gambling, right? Or I don't know if he
Gambling
was
or
selling
And the all
Spite?
the other stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Rich family.
I don't know. I
I
guess
mean, it
I'm
is
just waiting for.
confusing.
Normally, when you watch The
If you-
Sopranos, you get to see them like selling weapons, selling drugs, illegal like cell phones or something like that. Like you get to see them like doing criminal things, you know, as opposed to just like being The Sopranos. You know, it's not like they're just. There's a reason why they're The Sopranos, and it's because they made all that money selling illegal things. You know.
And it's interesting too, because in the last episode, he was so kind of angry or surprised or guessed that the Pikes were transporting spice. I mean, it was kind of
This
like,
is my point.
what's he trying to? I mean, I guess he was a mercenary. That's his history.
Yeah,
So
you
maybe
just
that's
like
all.
illegal-
Maybe that's all he wanted to do is like, I don't want a drug deal. I don't want to sell
Right.
things. I
We have-
just want to be hired. That's it.
Also, Bib Fortuna was like not a good. Didn't
Right.
command that much respect.
He was just like, "You guys do your thing, and just let me like be a fat cat up in my
I think like
thing, right?" And
Right.
maybe Boba is more like an ambassador, like not a crime boss in the same way that Jabba is, but wants
Seems
to
like a
manage
hard-
the relation. Like he just wants to be like everyone's representative, and wants to make sure that he understands everything that's going on, so that he can redistribute the wealth.
none of it makes any
Mhm.
sense. I mean, it seems hard to command as much power as Jabba the Hutt if you're not actively controlling any criminal activity.
You just
All
don't know
you're
what
doing,
he's trying to do, and
we
so
really
it's-
don't. We really don't. Yeah,
and
it's
so
weird.
for me, like, yeah, I know logically that maybe we'll find out. I could be patient, whatever. Just
Right.
not knowing is making it really hard to be invested in anything any of them say in the present day. Because I'm like, especially Fennec, who I'm just like, so far zero for me, no progress on Fennec. Still, no progress.
Nothing. And if anything, like she keeps doing these things that are like totally what she should be doing as like a person that's like running with apparently the new criminal crew. Like she goes, make sure, or I don't know, she threatens the major domo, right? And then Boba's like, that's a little heavy-handed, right? I'm like, no,
Yeah,
it wasn't.
She's there
You
for
guys
like,
are crime lords.
she's like,
This is like what you're supposed to do. Like,
Everything
what are
she
you not getting,
says-
Boba?
is like a setup for Boba to show that he's like a better person, which bothers me. Where it's like,
It does
it's
bother me
not
because
only
we don't have
that-
any reason for it, really.
Yeah. She's
Yeah.
the one that wants to kill people. She's the one that is going to just eat that chicken leg. She's like, enjoy the feast.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't do that. And she tries to threaten. He's like heavy handed. And then she's like,
Right.
do you want me to kill him? Like,
And he's
isn't
like,
that a little
"Whoa."
extreme? Like,
Maybe you're being too extreme. It's like, dude, you're Boba Fett. Like, you know. Yeah. Anyway.
I mean,
Same.
but again, what does that mean? You're Boba Fett. That's what the whole point of that was.
No,
you
you're
know,
right,
like,
Justin. I'm
who
open to
has
him
been
being.
Boba Fett? Maybe
Yeah,
he's
you're
been
right.
this really nice guy all along,
but he's
And he
not
just got
showing that he's nice.
misunderstand him.
Nothing he's
but
saying.
he just got mixed up with the Hutts and had to do the solo gig. And he's like, okay, I'm here for the party. And then this guy with a lightsaber appears, and he's like, "What is
This is-
happening?"
This is all like the life of Brian, basically. Not to just continue
all
to be like.
Life of
It's not.
Fett.
It's not to keep referencing Monty Python. The Life of Brian is where basically this guy Brian, everyone thinks that he's the savior, you know, back in the Roman
Yeah.
Empire around Jesus' time, and but it's just he's like in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Oh my
And maybe like that's what Boba Fett is, like the life of Boba Fett. It's like everyone thinks he's the baddest bounty hunter but he just like he keeps like, it's like he accidentally shot somebody in cold blood one time, but it was like his rifle went off, and they're like, whoa, Boba Fett's real cold blooded. He's like, wait, I didn't mean to do that, you know.
I want to make a distinction between what it means for Boba as a character to be ruthless and badass versus being nice and whatever, because
Right.
I don't feel like we're looking at things on the same, like, even axis plane. I don't know. I feel like thinking of Boba, I feel like those things are not like, they're kind of orthogonal, like, characteristics. And right now, I don't think anything that we're seeing, yes, we're seeing Boba being more passive, all this other stuff, but that's still not like something I'm judging on the same scale as badassness. And it's also not the same thing as niceness. I'm not seeing anything that shows, like, I'm not like, oh, Boba's a kind character with motivation. Because the thing is, like, I still don't know what he was living for and what he desires in life, really. I don't really know what he's doing. So I can't, saying things like, oh, I'm going to ride the rancor, or like, I'm not going to kill him, or like, I don't want to eat whatever, or like, I'm going to walk on my own 2 feet. Like, okay, I get that those are symbolic words that maybe might indicate that someone, I don't know, but they're not like, those things aren't working on me. First of all, they don't show me that he's nice or anything. They just show me that he doesn't want to walk on, like, that he wants to walk on his 2 feet, and that he doesn't want to, that he wants to ride a rancor. Like, that doesn't make me think, oh, he's an animal lover. Oh my gosh, Boba Fett's so nice. Like, no, like, nothing. I don't.
Well, let's talk about that rancor.
Yeah.
How do we all feel about that?
Rancor was interesting. That whole scene was interesting.
Good old Danny Trejo.
Machete comes in, which also took me out just a little, but that's okay. That's a different thing. Okay, but before we go directly into the rancor, that whole scene, like, the Hutts arrive. There's talking about the music here for a second. There's no fanfare that we established.
Yeah, we got that Hutt theme last week.
Big theme, and then nada. We don't get the overtone we established, which was fine. It's just more whatever. And the only real music that kind of comes in,
it's the Jaunty Boba.
Not real music. We get the Jaunty Boba thing. We get that. And then when the rancor appears, is it a kalimba or a bamboo sound? I don't know, James, if you picked up on that. It's this like almost like, it reminded me of either hitting, and I'm just using this as a reference, not to the musical style, but to the tone. But like, there's a style of gamelan, Indonesian gamelan, that's bamboo based.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called, but it kind of sounded like those instruments, or kind of like a thumb piano and bira kalimba thing without the resonator.
Where is this happening, Justin? Where are you talking
right
about?
as the rancor shows up, as we first see
on the thing.
Danny Trejo and the rancor kind of just appear, which I always thought was funny too, because the Hutts are being carried physically by all these people, and then the rancor shows up on a floating platform. But I know that's just a power dynamic for the Hutts, kind of a thing.
In the first shot of the Hutts, I swear their litter was not bending. Their litter was flat. It was.
I thought it was
later
just
on.
like
It was then later on. I don't know if that was like just a mistake in post or something.
Yeah.
Those
Do
sound
you hear
like
what I'm hearing, though?
Yeah, those sound like nipple gongs, or just kind of like Thai gongs, or like
Very
dong
bright,
dong dong dong. Those, that sound
kind of a thing. I thought that was an interesting, and then we didn't get it later when we are doing the rancor bonding scene. That was more of a what did I write down? Like pads and this weird like fluty exoticism, orientalism flute kind of a thing that kind of happened for a second there.
I guess this is kind of what I'm saying. Like it feels like if the rancor is going to be like I'm not saying this is how it has to be. Obviously, it's scoring approaches, but if the rancor is going to be a major part of the show, hypothetically in the future, it's interesting that we didn't get anything that was like something that really indicated the rancor's presence with the music. Like, we didn't get anything that we can latch onto that makes us think rancor from now on, you know? Like, right? right?
Yeah.
Like you would have think that like
So
when the
far.
rancor appeared, you get some type of sound or some type of theme or some type of thing that's like, here's this thing that you're probably going to we're going to make you create some type of emotional connection to, and then we're going to have Boba Fett interact with it in the future. You'd think that you'd get some type of indicative thematic material there, right?
Maybe that's
Right.
because we don't know what to. Maybe it's
Is it a
because they
trap?
don't want to
Yeah.
reveal the emotion to associate with it. Because I mean, I don't know if we trust the Rancor situation yet. And then on the other hand, we did get a Hutt's theme. Like we did get music for the Hutts last week, and
It just didn't happen this
so
week. So
yeah,
now I'm
it
curious.
just
This is
could
what I
have
meant
been-
at
yeah.
the beginning of this stream when I said we'd set up all these things and then we kind of toppled them down real quick. This is another one. I'm really curious. We just established this really kind of cool, like, hey, the Hutts are back. And then like, hey, bye.
Oh, bye,
Here's the Rancor.
see you later.
Sorry,
Right.
we
If
tried to
believe
kill
them,
you.
but still.
Yeah, I think they're gonna come back, kind of a thing. I thought that was interesting. And then real quick, because their voices, or we can kind of come back to that.
Their voices are so,
That's interesting.
especially the one on the left.
Yeah, I noticed. I'm pretty sure. So I did a little digging just for fun, and I wanted to know how Jabba's original voice was created, and I couldn't find anything. But I do know it was voiced by a gentleman by the name of Larry Ward, who actually helped invent the Hutt language, and also voiced Greedo, which I thought was interesting. But he helped invent it, and he has this big, deep, voice kind of a thing. I can't poodoo. That's the only Hutt word I know. And kind of a thing. And then their voices, I was like, oh, these are cool. They're very distinct. We're getting that deep rumble kind of fry, guttural, low voice kind of a thing happening there with the Hutts. But I think both of these Hutts are electronically manipulated voices. And I'm not sure if that was the original intent with like Jabba. Just a weird difference I heard. The reason I hear this, sorry, long point, story short, do they have names besides the twins?
Not that I know of. I don't see it at the Star Wars databank or anything like that.
So I'm going with Pink Hutt. She comes in, and when she starts speaking, everybody, this is really nerdy. I apologize. I know this is the point of the stream, but go listen to this. She's got a subtone in her voice that's kind of like almost like when we were talking about Cad Bane's voice our last seasons.
For sure.
How is this kind of electronically manipulated, like
she's harmonizing with herself.
She's harmonizing with herself. So that's a whole nother vocal range down here thing that's vibrating in her voice that's creating a subharmony. And then just me, because I hear it and I can't unhear it, when she says Wookiee kind of a thing, go back and listen. I'm pretty sure there's autotune in there. I'm just saying, I distinctly heard autotune, some hardcore autotune on that part.
To a note?
I heard of it. Yeah, it was really smooth, but it was a couple notes. It was like smooth, step, smooth kind of a thing, which I thought was just stuck out to me, and I hear these things, and I've been ruined forever. But
So Layla Hathaway and Pinky the Hutt can both harmonize with themselves. If anybody wants to have their mind blown, go watch Snarky Puppy.
Go watch
Layla Hathaway.
Anything by Layla Hathaway. She can
harmonize with herself using like throat tones. It's really interesting.
Yeah, so cool.
So the Hutts.
So those Hutt voices,
I love the Hutt voices. Yeah, you can feel it. You can you feel it vibrate. So then the Rancor. Yes. A word is said twice in this episode. First, Boba says it earlier, like at the beginning, and Danny Trejo, is that his name? Danny Trejo says it too. It's the word "fens," which really stuck out to me because I was like, I know that they're not using it in the context of like a nickname for Fennec, but it's just weird that like the same word came up twice in the same episode. Fens.
Yeah, that was weird, right?
Yeah, it was definitely
the forest and fens.
Forest and fens, and the murky fen. Okay, so the script is very the script sounded very formal to me, and like not, and
but stilted dialogue. I think we call that
very stilted,
right?
yes, and very slow delivery. Like where it was like almost where it was like really slow because gravitas, but
Right.
like because we don't really know what they're talking about or like know why they care. It's sort of just like, okay, we're watching someone be
Right.
royal. We're watching someone be noble. Okay.
It was a little bit like they had Danny Trejo on set for like 2 hours to like film all of his scenes.
Oh, I don't even
And they're
mean
like,
Danny Trejo. Boba.
you're talking about in the feast scene.
I'd say both. Yeah.
Boba
I'm-
throughout
throughout. He's always very
the
regal,
entire
kind of,
episode.
even Danny Trejo as well.
Yeah.
Who shows up
Um,
in quite a bit of Robert Rodriguez stuff, which is great.
Yeah. But I hypothetically he's going to be in future episodes, right? You know.
Right. We're gonna
Um,
figure out what is the deal
I
with
love
the
how
ring?
they love the. I love how like they didn't finish up on the Rancor like subplot. I guess normally, not normally, but like very typically though, that would have resolved itself like within the same episode. Like, here's your Rancor, let's learn it, let's do it. Now they're like, no, we'll get to that later. But first we gotta go have a medium speed chase with some Vespas. Next episode, we'll get to see the follow up on that Rancor.
He should have chased them down with the Rancor. Like, I'll show you how, like Boba, I'll show you how to do it. And Danny Trejo just gets on
Right.
top of the Rancor and just chases down the speeder bike.
Very interesting to leave that dangling thread, you know.
And also, not enticing, in my opinion, when he's like, I'm going to ride that thing. And I know there's a quote from the holiday special.
Yeah.
I'm not like, oh, hell yeah, I can't wait to see him ride the Rancor. I'm just like, please don't tell me they're dangling that. I don't
Please
want to
don't.
go through this later.
Don't worry.
I don't
he'll be
really want to
back.
go through this later.
And then for fans of Dune like me, it's writing giant creatures is always the end, right? Anyone read Dune? See the original Dune series? Go watch it.
I know.
You'll see what I mean.
Yeah, he
not
rides
this recent movie, but like
yeah, you're right. But I know. Yeah. Ultimately, he rides sandworms, right?
he writes the sandworms. It's great.
It's insane.
And this scene with the Rancor Keeper, when it bothered me. And I really hate to say it so much, but you know, I'm always a stickler for like animal scenes, and it's hard to. Yeah, I say this about like the original trilogy too, and the sequels, I say this about all the Star Wars. Basically, is yet again, all right, I'm still not satisfied with what's happening with an animal on screen.
Yeah.
This dialogue, like, it's depressed. And then Boba's like, this beast can feel such things. I'm like, no shit. Why would you even? Okay. And then Rancor are emotionally complex creatures, which I think a lot of people liked that line. And I understand why. But to me, it's like, it's making text something that should have already been subtext like long ago. Like, is that it kind of it's stating like the obvious. And so it sounds like, to me, it sounded like it came off as like,
I think we should also remember that Star Wars is also for children, and I think these types of like explicit, candid conversations, though they seem obvious to us,
I don't know. I was really sad about the Rancor when I was a kid.
I know, but what I'm saying is that they're having that type of discussion. Whether they did a good job of doing it, I don't have a problem with them being explicit. So when you're saying it should be subtext, I don't know if like.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it should be. I'm just saying for me it didn't work,
Okay.
and it might just be because I'm not the audience. Yeah,
I mean, a child hearing like, "Ooh, interesting! A big scary monster. It has a complex, emotional things." I think it's worth saying that in a kid show on
sure,
screen.
it just didn't work for me.
Yeah, sure. And by the way, it didn't work for me either.
Yeah.
but I'm just like rash. It's also this stuff is for kids. It's
Yeah,
supposed
but
to be
I
a
don't
little
think we. I
dumb.
don't. I don't feel like I should have to rationalize to
No,
just say
no,
my
of course.
opinion. Yeah,
Sure. I'm just offering why they might have put it in there. At the same time,
I think
it's
a lot
kind
of
of
adults
funny.
need to hear it too, because I
It's
think
kinda-
a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah,
adults were
sure.
impacted by it as well.
I think it's kind of interesting. It's like they have complex emotional feelings. So let's leave them in this dark dungeon without any company or any like.
That's the thing, because
you know,
everything that came after that was like, okay, and moving on. Like then we
and
learned
I'm going to
that
subjugate it by riding it.
right. Then we learned
next
that it has
episode.
blinders on, and that it's just been like
Mhm.
waiting for its human to like lay its eyes on. And I'm like,
Pretty
okay,
weird.
Boba's like being the total cultural tourist again, like just being like, all right, I'm gonna dominate a Rancor, like, but I'm gonna do it in a better way because I'm not gonna fight you. I'm not gonna use it to fight, even though if it was bred to fight, maybe it actually prefers to fight. Who knows? But we don't. But it doesn't even matter. Like, what's the difference? It's a rancor. Like, obviously, it's someone who like likes to get I don't know, needs to get some energy out in some way.
Right.
What to us is like inhumane, to a rancor just being fed like just being fed like humans, that's like easy. That doesn't seem like that seems like fun. That's like I try to make my cat feel like she's hunting. You
Right.
know, that's like what that's like to a rancor. But riding
Yeah.
it, like, I mean, that might be fine, but it wasn't like an obvious better option than the alternative. And then just like the
Right.
whole fact that like the blinders have been kept on so that it can imprint on Boba. Like Boba's the special unicorn that's going to be imprinted on. Like not even the Rancor keeper who's caring for it. Like they've been saving it for Boba, saving the
They've been
imprint
blind
for
this
Boba.
entire time. Been blind the entire time since just birth. Put the blinders on, and the first thing it sees, human, not anything.
The first-
human it sees. It'll do this thing, and then also with the music.
And then his armor was blinking, and that really bothered me. I was like,
Yeah.
is the
then
Rancor
with-
going to get distracted? If I were the Rancor, I would only be looking at the
Not
blinking light.
notice that at all. Of course,
I
you
would
would
do
notice
that.
something like
Autistic
that.
thing. I don't know.
And I thought was interesting about that part when we get the blinders removed, the music itself gets very like I like you said unicorn, because it gets very mystical and
Right.
like almost like it brought me back almost to the moment where Hutt, the Tusken drug lizard
Oh, yeah.
thing. It brought me back to that music, like this mysticism. And then the Rancor lays eyes upon this desert guardian of the Tusken religious mysticism, kind of, because he is one
Who's
with
going
it.
to
It
tame
kind
the
of has
beast
this like,
later?
Yeah, that's great.
okay.
You know what I mean? It's like, what if like at Galaxy's Edge they do hey kids, imprint upon your own Rancor experience.
I would do it.
You, like go in there and they
I
have
would
this
be
giant
upset about
puppet
it.
that like opens its eyes and it's like this
I
is
would
your
do that.
Just
Rancor.
I
retheme
would-
Indiana Jones.
It's like all these kids walking around with these giant like robotic Rancors.
Rancors.
Danny Trejo
Uh,
appears every Tuesday.
Danny
so he
Trejo is there. Hey kids.
The
Yeah, exactly. Neil Carson, Vor, go.
band.
I was thinking the same thing.
Okay, so the funniest thing to me at the end of the scene is like Boba doesn't know anything about Rancor here, obviously, or at least doesn't know that they can feel depression, or doesn't know, he's learning about how this Rancor was bred, he's learning about the blinders, whatever. He's getting Rancor 101 here. And then at the end of it, he's like, feed it a blah, blah, blah. Like, then he gives, as if he's the one who like knows how to care for the Rancor. It's just really funny to me.
That's such a good point.
It's so funny.
Right.
It's like when you go to like, I don't know, like a kid, like, I don't know, when you're a kid and you go to a thing and you get to pretend like you work at the place for a day, or you like get to go to the aquarium and like do something. And then they're like, all right, now you get to feed it. And like, all right, now you try to do the command. Like it's sort of like,
That's so good.
Boba
It's like, he's like,
immediately-
film a Bronto, and then like in the back of Danny Trejo's mind, he's like, I'm gonna feed him what he actually wants. But yeah, sure,
I was going to
boss.
say
Yeah,
it
sure.
would have been funny if he just comes out and it's like, actually, they only drink blue milk. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
or
They don't
feeding
actually
hour
eat
has
the
already
human.
passed, or it has
They just-
specific feeding hours. Like, how does Boba?
Oh, it's vegetarian, actually. Oh.
Well, okay. Let me say, here's where this stupid, like the stupidest place this could go, or most tropey place that the Rancor thread might go, where he like rides the Rancor at the final episode, as like some big reveal, right? It's kind of right. It's kind of like Donkey riding the dragon at the end of Shrek, right? Right. And it's like, remember that scene, right? He busts in the cathedral and he's riding the dragon, right? And so it's like the Rancor is the dragon in the trope, and Boba's riding it. But maybe in the post-credit scene, he goes all Harry and the Hendersons on that Rancor, and like we get a little Dathomir scene where he drops the Rancor back off at Dathomir, and it's like, no, get out of here! Don't you understand? Nobody loves you anymore. And like the Rancor's like, like
Gives a little
he's
look
like,
back.
He gives a look back. Get out of here!
Okay, here was the
Back to
line.
There's the
Dathomir.
mama and the papa Rancor. The parent Rancor is in the background, and it's been a baby all along.
Okay, so
Yeah,
he says,
of course. And of course you have to do like some type of like gender
he says,
uprooting.
feed the Rancor a full Ronto carcass from the larder. I think it's hungry. That's what he said.
He just had Ronto carcasses there. He was like, be sure to fill this thing.
I don't know. The first time I cat sat for someone, there's like no way that I would have been like, I think she's hungry. I'm just gonna take a scoop of this and a scoop of that. Yeah, sounds like a good idea.
Dude, yeah. So funny.
I'd be like, tell Rancor Keeper, please take care of this Rancor. But I get it. Boba needs to show that he exerts. We need to show that Boba has control over every situation.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Even though they haven't shown him like basically be triumphant in a fight once in this entire series so far. It's 3 episodes in, and Boba Fett hasn't won a physical altercation by himself once yet. Once. Every single time he gets completely smacked around a room and somebody else helps him out, right? So maybe that's the point.
Which
maybe
would
they're
totally
building
be
up
fine if we knew what his deal was, like why he was there, what he was trying to do.
Right.
I don't care if he's passive, but I don't know, like just tell us a little bit more about him. Oh my gosh.
You know what's funny though? I actually really like this show so far, personally. And even though I feel like me too. So I was just realizing how much I've been roasting this show so far, but I actually am really enjoying it. So just want to throw that out there real quick.
I'm looking forward to every episode.
I'm roasting it way harder than I ever roasted Bad Batch, and I like this show actually a lot more.
I roasted Bad Batch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we can. Oh, I mean, we can't joke about it.
I don't actually think I don't think I'm roasting this show either.
Let's watch it. Let's go ahead and watch our videos later and see if we think we're
roasting it just a little.
We're roasting it pretty hard. Yeah, we're roasting it more than Danny Trejo would have roasted that Ronto for that for that Rancor.
I think it's like something about the tone. I think the tone of the show. Something about the tone of the show makes me. Like the tone is obviously not entirely serious.
Right.
And so I don't know. I think that makes the critique never mind. I don't know where I'm going with that. Like I think if it were like a really earnest, like I think if it got me into a more ruminating like place, our conversation would be a little bit different, you know?
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, it's a little all over the place.
Yeah. You know the most interesting part of the episode for me that I was like so intrigued to learn more was toward the beginning when Lortha Peel's like, Tatooine was once covered in water. It's really interesting actually, and then he gets cut off. I was like, tell me more about Tatooine. What happened? Tell me about the mass extinction event. That's what I want to know.
That moment didn't go down as strange. Like it went down really. Like I had the similar reaction when I first saw that. I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's cool. They're exploring lore. And then when I went to rewatch it to talk about it today, I'm realizing that like Boba's like little additive, like basically the guy's like, I sell water, right? Mm-hmm. The guy's like, I'm a watermonger. And like, by the way, mind you, we're talking about water, the most like common molecule or whatever, like one of the most common like molecules in the galaxy that like hypothetically most living beings need like they do on Earth, right? Like, and Boba, we're talking about water. We're not talking about something unique like some weird ingredient, but Boba goes, water? I grew up all around water. Like, isn't that kind of a weird thing to like inject into the conversation?
I almost thought Lortha Peel was going to say, good for you.
Yeah, kind of like, okay. Yeah. I don't see how that's at all relevant to like the fact that I sell water. It'd be like,
but it did get him to say Tatooine was once covered with water.
Imagine if you grew up next to the ocean, okay, and you go into the Midwest and you're talking to someone and they're like, I could really use a glass of water, and you're just like, I grew up right next to the water. You're like, okay, that's cool.
Good for you.
Honestly, I know that oceans exist. I'm aware of oceans.
Also, gotta love watermongers, like warmonger.
Yeah, look how he self-identifies as a monger. Usually a monger is something that you call somebody like as a criticism. You don't use like I'm a monger for water.
It's like a fish monger.
I didn't
harvest and sell and distribute fish.
I didn't get on my first watch. I didn't take him as a like um, I didn't take him as like a, I don't know, like he's not a bad guy, but like we learned that he's sort of a greedy, whatever. He's not eventually, like I took him at really face value. Like, oh, look, of someone who an actual resident has a concern. Like now let's hear what residents' concerns are. So like I guess I didn't get the humor. I didn't get like the joke of it. Like, did it bring you? Were you immediately struck with like, oh, he's being greedy and over the top or something? Because I didn't really understand that until later when we met the gang. I was sort of like, oh, interesting. He brokers water, and he's having a problem. It didn't hit me. I wanted to have an open mind with that character.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't, because obviously he's there to serve that purpose. But also, I think it helps that I didn't know who the actor. I didn't recognize him from anything, so I was
Stephen
like,
Root.
yeah.
Yeah, I love him. He's great. He's from Office Space. That's notable. He's the guy that I believe you have my stapler.
Oh, it's
I
him.
have seen that movie. I just I don't know
That's
how
a
I would have known it was the same person. Jeez.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. See, that's a thing. That's a thing, Orc I didn't think Monger to me doesn't.
Yeah.
Didn't
Sorry,
automatically.
that's a miss association that I had with that word. But it's interesting. The whole, I like that they're exploring like little economic, like they're really digging into Tatooine. Like we've learned a lot about Tatooine over the last like 2 live action shows. Pretty cool, actually. Like we're learning a lot more about the Tuskens. We're learning about like, we're seeing things about like the crate dragon. We're learning a lot about Tatooine. We're very familiar now with the ins and outs of Tatooine. In many ways, this show is doing for Tatooine what like Clone Wars did for like Kamino and Coruscant. Like Coruscant and Kamino, you get a lot more insight about what's going on in those cities and planets than you did it really in the movies. And this and the Mandalorian have really fleshed out the Tatooine like economy and culture and things like that. It's kind of interesting. So
Cutting forward, this is honestly kind of relatable to me. The Tatooine mods can't afford overpriced water, but shiny new speeders, cool clothes, and cybernetic implants are no problem. Yeah,
priority.
I understand that.
Priority.
Oh yeah, I've been there. I've been like,
can't afford health insurance.
I'm really glad I got this new synthesizer.
I should get a new. Yeah. What else am I gonna spend it? I mean, I might as well get a new. Yeah.
Maybe they can write off they probably can write those off on their taxes, their cybernetics, they're probably like work expenses,
Also, obviously we don't know the details of their situation. Maybe they bartered,
I mean, they're probably on 1099s, I bet. Yeah. So.
But that in itself isn't like, also if someone was charging me that much for water, I might like be like, screw you. And boycott.
Seriously, 1,300?
Yeah.
1,300 imaginary
1,300 somethings? That's too much.
They said a month's wages for a week's amount of water. Whatever,
and that's
but they
not
don't work, so
that's
so
true. I would boycott that because that's not sustainable. But the the last not the last, but what were we talking about before this? Oh my god, I forgot.
Rancor.
Oh, we were talking about Tatooine.
Yeah,
Tatooine.
Learning more about Tatooine. I guess I just really want to know more about the dinosaurs that lived on Tatooine.
Oh, right, with like the bones that we've seen, right?
Oh, they didn't, Oric Fonts? I'm disappointed too. The cybernetic, like, first of all, I didn't notice, like, except for that one character's eye. I didn't notice that one character's arm. I didn't really notice the enhancements that they had until like rewatches and watching other people talk about it.
Right.
And something about that wasn't working for me, and I don't know what it was. I don't think it's like just the fact that they had speeders, or just the fact that they looked like Vespas, or just the fact that they had zippers or cybernetic enhancements. It's something about like the way everything was working together and the script around it, and the little like thing Boba says at the end with like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to like joke about your eye." Like something about it felt disingenuous to me. Like I don't know if it was trying to like represent something. I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion on it. It
I know what you
didn't
mean.
really. I just wasn't like immediately taken by it. And now knowing that they didn't cast disabled people for the roles where they have, it's like I don't know.
Right.
They like must have CGI'd her arm off. I don't know.
Yeah, that seems
Yeah,
especially since, not especially, but it makes it even worse that the parts are such bit parts that like if you didn't even need to work that hard to find somebody that could basically run around in the background. Like if you're going to cast somebody that doesn't, that is having, prosthetics, like at least pick someone that actually has prosthetics in real life that actually has that. Especially if you don't need to audition them to say any lines, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like it seems like a pretty low hanging fruit.
It was the main speeder girl.
She had what? She only had one arm?
Again, I didn't notice it
had
at
a
first.
cybernetic arm.
But regardless,
Still,
there's a million people in Hollywood that are fantastic actors that would love, that actually go through that experience, that would love those roles. It's not hard. We all know them. We all know people that are looking for opportunities,
Yeah.
So agreed.
So you know how sound design can elevate a situation and make it, or not elevate, it can make something feel more realistic. And I'm going back to Krrsantan, how ferocious Krrsantan sounded.
Woo,
I think
sounded
the
great.
sound design was like so ferocious there that it made the scene tip into less believable to me, because I'm like, judging from what I'm hearing, Boba's dead like immediately. How did Boba survive that based on what I was hearing? You know what I mean? What do you think?
I'm surprised Krrsantan didn't just go in and do the famous Wookiee arm tear off immediately, and that was the end of that kind of a thing.
Krrsantan was taking such nimble little bites that like didn't really even bite anyone's arm off. It's just like little chomps, but like the sound sounded like pretty
some serious plot armor there.
Ferocious, and then like this like Gamorrean like little brawl here to hear their squeals as he bites into their. It was very brutal.
Pretty brutal.
Which was, I guess, the point of this character of this ferocious bounty hunter.
Yeah,
who's
but they didn't
just
show them like that severely. And the cracks, the bone cracks, great bone cracks. Loved the sound. Just was not believable that Boba could walk afterward.
Yeah,
to me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't know if we really want the Disney Plus Star Wars show to be showing like a freaking like Gamorrean with like his arm ripped off or something, but like,
Oh, for sure. But they could have made like choreographed it differently to make it.
I know what you mean. Like it was very much a plot armor moment for Boba Fett. You're like, the only reason why he's walking away from this is they can't have him limping in the next scene. And like that's basically what it came out down to. It's like, well, we can,
Yeah, bones cracking, and it didn't sound like the type of like chiropractor crack.
Yeah. No. And then we just let him go.
Well, to the point where like when I first watched it, I thought Krrsantan was going to reveal himself to be like there, like to be allies with Boba. Like I thought he was gonna. I thought we were gonna have some kind of moment where he was like gonna rough Boba up just to like scare him, be like, "Hey, I'm actually here to help you."
Right.
Because Boba was not
because
getting
he
hurt.
so could have killed him, but he's.
It also like Krrsantan just like. The security on Jabba's palace is
and then
like,
they came in with like the little pocket
Leia in Return of the Jedi could just walk in. Like, doesn't Leia like knock one of the freaking like wind chimes in the thing in her, like she like hits her head against that? Nobody. I mean, obviously Jabba is all waiting for them, of course.
Where was Fennec? Where was Fennec coming in?
Oh my God, she's the assassin. Yeah.
It's like, hey everyone,
she's busy.
Sorry, I'm late.
At the feast for one.
I'd say priorities in terms of like guarding Boba Fett I'd say priority would be like when he is completely defenseless asleep in a watery tank. Like I think like that would be the one scenario where you're like, definitely have somebody like outside the room, like, protecting him when he is completely unconscious and encased in a medicine goo.
Maybe he doesn't tell people
So,
when he's doing it, though. Maybe he wants that to
yeah,
be a
maybe
private
it's a
thing.
pride thing. Yeah, right.
Also, okay, at least he's got that back to tank. True. So I'm chalking it up to like, I
He
don't
gives
know.
it to the
Maybe
pig.
he
He
had
gives it to
some
the
like
chameleon.
immunity from just getting out. Like maybe it made him strong.
That's true, right?
And then I'm sorry to say this, it's not whatever. As when he was like get him in the back to tank, I just immediately was thinking like the germs. They're gonna share little baths.
Okay, well, I think if there's one type of substance that you don't have to worry about germs, it's like the most miraculous
No,
healing
I agree.
juice
I
that you've
agree.
ever
I think
seen
it
in your
makes
life.
sense. Just I had a visceral reaction to that with like,
That's really funny that you thought the first thing you thought was, oh, how gross that they're sharing a tank.
like, they're sharing Bacta.
Well, maybe it drains every time, and they just knew stuff.
And then they sanitize the tank, and
that's Fennec's, round, that's on their schedule of the day. Boba gets up, clean the tank, eat a chicken leg.
Or not.
Mass amounts of food for two. I loved that droid coming out with all those plates, and he's just like, "Will you stop?"
I do like that. When Galaxy's Edge was first opening up, there's like, in fact, they even said this at like I think Celebration. They're kind of like, Star Wars is not a franchise known from like showcasing its food items very often, like Harry Potter does. Harry Potter has like butterbeer and all the every flavor beans, and there's just like there's like clear food marketing built into the franchise of Harry Potter, right? And in many ways, like Star Wars hasn't done that other than like blue milk, and that's kind of it. And so they were like, what are they going to sell at the park? So they really went like all in on the blue milk thing, which is kind of a weird thing to like, let me walk around Florida or California with like a dairy product. It's not actually
it's a smoothie though.
No, you're right. And you're right.
Tasty.
So that's exactly why they made it a non-dairy fruit smoothie, is because nobody wants to actually walk around in the hot sun with a dairy product. Right. And this is to the point where like, I've very much appreciated how in the last 5 years of Disney Star Wars that they're like every show almost has like some type of food thing, like that they're like
mental mix.
I was about to say
that's what I'm saying. It's like exactly. So it's like they're like going out of their way to be like, okay, what can we sell people as Star Wars
See,
food?
you appreciate that. I feel neutral about it. Neutral to skeptical of it. I feel skeptical whenever, not that I don't like it, because I like it too. I would. Mantel mix looks delicious. I'm I'm just naturally going to be skeptical of any time. It's obviously a choice.
Hey, kids, come and go and ask your kid. Eat this squid ravioli or whatever they had on that, like from the Book of Boba Fett feast. They had the only thing I remember from it was like the chicken wing looking thing.
Oh, yeah, the squid pasta,
and like
and then there's like a squid pasta
thing.
Yeah, the octopus thing. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Which everyone will be love to walk around with at Galaxy's Edge. Little octopus plate.
I guess it's just like an actual octopus that they're serving you. That'll be intense. Yeah, so I guess that's what they're doing. They're definitely doing some work on trying to get you to like eat their Star Wars food in these last
Disney.
shows.
Yeah, there's a lot of work being done.
Yeah, speaking about Disney, how did you like that the biker gang was basically wearing like the Disney cast member gray suits that they wear at like on Main Street? Like they're wearing like gray suits. They're wearing like gray
what are you talking
old
about?
timey.
I missed that.
It reminds me of like they're all wearing these like pristine gray like suited outfits that all look like they're Disney cast members. Like
Disney cast members wear gray suits? I never.
Yeah, like when you go on Main Street and you go to like the
Oh, they got the jackets.
Those gray jackets that like the Disney cast members wear, right?
Little nod.
I didn't even think of that.
Well, anyway, they're either way they're wearing like suits, which I thought was kind of interesting.
The biker gang?
Yeah.
And they had all this. Two of them had like these like.
They had like suit coats, like sport coats on.
Oh yeah,
British
like mods,
kind of thing. And then punk rock. She listens to Starwaver. She's a Starwaver fan.
No.
One of these people are Starwaver fans for sure.
Starwaver fans, all of them.
So I saw the thing on Twitter was that was happening a couple days ago was that someone was mentioning the zippers that were visible, and that George Lucas didn't want zippers, and like
Yeah.
they didn't want zippers in the, I don't know, in the original designs or whatever. And at first I was like, this is some bullshit. Like, what are we picking? Like, I was like, okay, what exactly are we picking on? Then I saw like the actual like thing that it was referring to, and the way that it was described in the, it was like a photo of,
Yeah.
what was written about the zippers.
Yeah.
And and people were pointing out like, oh, but look, there's zippers on Luke's thing here. There's zippers. I bet there's zippers on this, pointing out different things. And I guess the point was that like originally George Lucas didn't want zippers to be visible because it was like too earthy for him.
Right.
And someone on Twitter who like worked on the films was pointing it out, and I think he like has pointed it out on other shows too, like other Star Wars things too, sort of like on the Mandalorian, sort of like, remember with the zippers, like, make sure that you don't show zippers. And then people were just using like all these opportunities to dunk on him with like if he actually, and not that he was right or wrong, but like he was just pointing out something that mattered to him, and he did have like a source. Whether that source should be treated like the Bible is another question on entirely. But the point wasn't that like whether the clothes had zippers or not. The point was how much from a design perspective you want to show the zippers. And I think like that's a completely valid thing for someone to think about, to care about. And
it's part of the language of the franchise. I mean, it's kind of like the Wilhelm scream, right? Like the Last Jedi classically didn't have the Wilhelm scream in it. And
well, it's not like the Wilhelm scream though. The Wilhelm scream is something that's put in as a, like if there's no Wilhelm scream, you don't notice. You know what it's not like zippers where if it is really something that you're not used to seeing in Star Wars, it's like something else, like another example that would be like
it's kind of like a tradition. It's
something.
almost like we think about tradition here. Is what I'm saying. There's a sense of tradition with Star Wars. Like, hey, we've picked this thing. I don't know. I mean, it's a galaxy. You'd think that somebody would have invented zippers somewhere. Like,
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
so that's why there's so much gray area. The point isn't like whether or not it's canon. The point is like stylistically.
Right. And I guess the Wilhelm scream is I'm calling that a stylistic component to the franchise. It's like these little things, these little traditional things. Like there's a sense of tongue-in-cheekness of this franchise, that there is a tradition of Easter eggs, and this particular Easter egg is one of those little traditions that is like set to be part of the aesthetic of this show, right?
But zippers aren't a tradition. They're just a stylistic choice that one can remain true to or not. It's not like, different people can interpret Baroque music differently, but it doesn't change like,
design guidelines. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's different because it's something that's like more subtle. It's not something that people notice. It's just like you notice when things are off, when there's too many things off. And that's because of style. That's because of design things that not the average person can see, because we're not the ones designing them. And, other people are, like like Disneyland feels like Disneyland, and it's hard to explain how all of the ways that it feels like a unique place compared to other places, but you feel it, and without even knowing like what all the things are. And yeah, for Star Wars, I'm not saying that zippers definitely take me out of it, but I'm saying like if there are too many things, perhaps for some people, because we all have different sensitivities to different aspects that we're noticing, to some people, perhaps if you stray too much from things that were initial design guidelines, so to speak, maybe it wouldn't just on a visceral level register as Star Wars, whether or not you are trying to or not. Like it might just not.
I guess I would make that same hypothetical argument about the Wilhelm scream, though.
Okay.
I'd say like somebody that didn't hear it all for a 2.5 hour movie, you might subconsciously not register it as being the same because they're used to having that little soundbite somewhere in the mix, right?
Fair enough. And same with like themes and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, albeit it's also part of, I think, yeah, anyway, it's the point being is that people. You're right. Is what I'm saying. People are right to have these feelings about the things that they associate with. I mean, because that means something to them,
And it's all
as a
subjective.
designer.
Yeah.
It's all subjective, and you're also right to like not care about that.
Exactly.
If you don't,
Exactly.
right.
Exactly.
So yeah. So
So,
dig it.
Yes.
Like we the three of us know that people associate us as being flannel lovers. People. Everyone knows that subconsciously.
Everyone.
Yes, and so we wanted to make sure we show up in that way.
You're welcome. You're
You're
welcome.
welcome, crew.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also apparently know us well enough that our positions are switched to James. So
Yes.
we gotta.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah.
We're gonna
Love it.
we're gonna throw another one at y'all soon. Don't worry. See if you notice.
On that note, I think that's all for Book of Boba chapter 3. I'm very excited for chapter 4. I mean, I'm excited for all of them because I don't know, it's fun to watch things
now
as they come out.
Yeah, I
It's-
have no
it's-
idea what to expect
yeah.
with them now.
It's definitely a show where I don't know what they're doing. Like I don't really know what to expect. Like more so than I do with other stuff in many ways. Like I feel pretty much on the edge of my seat in terms of like what are they going to do with this story next week. So that's exciting.
Can be good.
Probably a different director, so.
Oh, that's right. We're getting a different director soon, aren't we?
Because we still have a Bryce Dallas Howard one coming up. I just don't know when.
Wow, that's right. Oh, man, that episode's gonna be great. I have a feeling.
Let us hope. Anyway, let's get out of this murky fen.
All right.
We'll be back next week at the same time at 4 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday, and we'll be talking about Book of Boba Fett Chapter 4, which will be over halfway done through the series.
Crazy.
Be good.
Wild. All right. Thanks, everyone, for being with us.